Hey, good evening. Good evening. Om Gyanantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunomilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing our study of chapter 8 Bhagavad-Gita. Today we'll be covering verses 11 through 15. I'll complete the passage that we started last time, which was verse 5. So the passage is from verse 5 to 15. We covered the first half, we'll cover the second half. The beginning of chapter 8, Arjuna asked 7 questions. And this passage, verses 5 to 15, Krishna is answering the last of those questions, the 7th question. The 7th question of Arjuna, Prayana Kali Chakatam Geho Asidni Yatatmabi. So Arjuna wants to know how Krishna can be known, how you can be known Niyata Atmabihi, by the self-controlled person. Prayana Kale, at the time of death. So obviously, it's interesting, Arjuna himself has put forth the qualifier, Niyata Atmabihi, by the self-controlled person. A person who has learned how to control themselves, their emotions. Self-control here, as we'll see from the passage, also means how you control what's going on inside. That person can, there's some hope that that person can know Krishna at the time of death and not others. Modern times it is considered even a virtue, it seems, to be emotionally unstable. The word that I've been using that I like is incontinent. Incontinence means a person who cannot hold their urine. So nowadays, it seems to be a virtue to be emotionally incontinent, where you're not able to hold your emotions. Whatever you feel, you just express yourself. Even if you're feeling all nonsense, express yourself. And so, indeed, people do that. They express themselves all over social media also, and they get a lot of social credit for doing that, for being emotionally unstable, basically. So such persons are not able to be spiritual because they're too much moved by the external environment. In order to be spiritual, and by spiritual we mean having the ability to focus on spiritual subject matter, ultimately focus on Krishna, then you need to be able to become rather stoic to the external environment. Otherwise, the whole environment is always inviting our attention to become preoccupied with it. Everything in the external world, whether it's politics or someone looking at you funny, it invites you to become absorbed in external. And so long as the mind is absorbed in external, then you have to take an external birth. So only a person who is able to control their inner world, their mental states, they're able to focus on divinity and thus be able to obtain Krishna, the divine, and not others. So that is indicated in Arjuna's question itself. Katam geyosi asinayata atmabihi. How are you known, Prayana Kali, at the time of death? By the self-controlled person, not the emotionally crazy person or the person who speaks nicely. There are other people they can speak very nicely. Like me, I speak sometimes nicely also. But inside, turmoil. So that person also cannot know Krishna at the time of death. You understand? So our Krishna begins answering this in verse 5. We already covered these verses. But he says, for one who can remember me at the time of death, then they can know me. So then he talks about the culture of developing remembrance. He says the principle is that whatever you absorb your mind in, sadata bhava bhavita. So that means like all the time, you're thinking of that object, then you fix your mind on that particular object. So we talked about habits of remembrance. And you keep thinking about something. When you think of something, the thought itself leaves an imprint. Just like an experience, you have like a bad experience, like if you eat chocolate ice cream and you don't like that experience. So it leaves a bad impression. Oh, I don't like chocolate. Or you like chocolate ice cream and it leaves a good imprint. Oh, I like chocolate, right? So not only does the experience externally leave imprints, but thoughts themselves also leave imprints. Every thought leaves an impression. So when you think something, like sometimes we have some thought like, I don't like this person. That happens regularly in Kali Yuga. So you say, I don't like this person. So that leaves an imprint. And then that imprint causes the mind to move in the same direction. So again, you think when you say, I don't like this person, at least now that imprints become stronger. And then again, you see them, and then I don't like this person again. So then the imprint becomes stronger. Then you don't see them, but you just think of them. I don't like this person. Then the imprint like this. So you keep building impressions, and the more you think of a certain object, that impression of the object becomes stronger and stronger until that you're practically absorbed in that object. Right? That's how the mind actually works. So unless we have the habit of constantly thinking of Krishna, then we won't have the strength of mind to think of Krishna at the time of death. So therefore, in verse 7, Krishna, the question was, how can a self-controlled person remember you at the time of death? Krishna is saying, why only at the time of death? At all times, you should actually think of me. You have to build a culture of being able to do that at the time of death. Otherwise, you will not do it at the time of death also. We joked about this many times. There are people who say, I'll become spiritual when I'm 50. Now I'm young and, got strong senses. I look good. I'm going to enjoy. And later on, when I'm old and useless, then I'll do spiritual life. They think like that. Spiritual life for useless people. But then you become old, you'll not be able, because you've not cultivated that mind, so you'll not be able to think at the time of death also. We discussed this already. So therefore, tasma sarveshu kaleshu mama nusmana yuddhacha. You think of me all the time. And you have to build a mind of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada once said that Krishna consciousness means our mind. So externally, body can be doing anything, but what is your mind doing? That is a question. Later on, we'll hear from the Bhagavad-Gita that the most confidential teaching, Mamana Bhavama Bhakto Mam Yaji Mam Namaskuru, the most secret teaching in the Bhagavad-Gita, Mamana Bhava, think of me. That is the most secret teaching. Mamana Bhavama Bhakto, and become my devotee. So to think of Krishna as, but how you'll be able to do that? Tasma Sarveshu, you have to practice doing it all the time. Yuddhacha, and you should also fight. So Yuddhacha means Arjuna may like the proposition, not only think of Krishna. So I only think of you, why I should fight this war. He's anyway trying to get out of the war. So Krishna says, no, you also fight. So you have to remember Krishna while existing in the world. This is injunction. So Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, so you should practice this. Abhyasa Yoga means you should practice always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. This is the essence of practice. Srila Rupa Goswami defines sadhana as this. The essence of sadhana, the essence of spiritual bhakti practice is to always remember Krishna and to never forget him. That is the essence of practice. So Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. So Krishna is also saying you should practice this. Then there is some chance that you'll be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. And not some curse word, as I mentioned last time when I almost car accident and I cursed. I didn't say Krishna. So that's because I had built impressions of cursing in a dangerous situation and not saying Krishna in a dangerous situation. So unless we're practiced to think of Krishna while we're struggling, we'll not do it at the time of death. It is not that magically we will think of Krishna. So then Krishna gives a verse about how he should be thought of. So to think of Krishna means to think of him in terms of his actual position. Not that, oh, my friend is named Krishna, I think of them. But you actually think of Krishna in his actual position. And in order to do that, you should strengthen that practice by yoga. So this is verse 10. And now we're going to expand on this a little bit. Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Because in order to think of Krishna all the time, Krishna's got some competition in the mind. There's so much competition inside, isn't it? Krishna is there, like if you think of it like, I don't know what to think of it like a race, not a race, competitor. So there's the Krishna nation is there, the Christian nation, representing the nation of Krishna is Krishna. But there are so many other nations inside also. What are the nations? The nations of taste, the nations of touch, the nations of smell, the nations of, which ones I miss? Sound. The nation of form is really, the nation of form is real dangerous competitor. And so the nation of the sense objects and the senses. And so the nation of Krishna is like one small little nation. And these other nations of sense object senses are very, very big nations. And they've been winning the competition since time immemorial. So in order to think of only of Krishna at all times, you have to be able to withdraw your mind from these nations of sense objects, of sense gratification. So that is what the practice of yoga is for. To practice of yoga means to withdraw the mind from external world and focus it inside. So Krishna has mentioned prayana kali manasachalena bhakta yukto yoga balena chaiva. So if one is practiced to have steady mind, engaged in devotion, strengthened by yoga practice. So this is called as yoga mishra bhakti. Earlier, Krishna had talked about karma mishra bhakti. When he mentioned souls that surrender to him. Some souls surrender to him for getting enjoyment, but they want eternal enjoyment. So they practice what is called as karma mishra bhakti. And there are some souls who surrender to Krishna for liberation. So they practice what is called jnana mishra bhakti. So here Krishna is also describing yoga mishra bhakti. They practice yoga mishra bhakti. They practice yoga in order to strengthen their focus on Krishna ultimately. So Krishna is also suggesting this thing here. Understand this yoga mishra bhakti. So he expands on this a little bit more in 3 verses. So we'll look at that now. This is verse 11, 12, 13. He expands on this yoga mishra bhakti. You understand? So we talked about these different types of devotees, right? We heard about basically 6 categories of devotees, and now this is 7th category. Right? So 6 categories of devotees, or did we say 6? You remember all the 6? You said 6. You said yes very confidently.
The inquisitive, the wanting material,
The Jnani. Okay, you did very good. He gets a round of applause. So the different types of devotees are there. Those who want bhukti, there are a few types are there. So they do karma mishra bhakti. Those who want mukti, one type, they practice jnana mishra bhakti. So some also practice yoga mishra bhakti. So Krishna is describing that here. So this is verse 11. Yadakshanam veda vido vedanti vishanti yatyo. So veda vido vedanti, those people who are knowers of the Vedas, they call this reality the akshara, which means the imperishable. We heard about this earlier. The imperishable refers to Brahman or Krishna. Vishantiya yatayo vitaraga, and the yatis, yati means a sannyasi. Yati means one who controls himself. Generally, it's a word used in Sanskrit for describing a sannyasi. So the yatis who are vitaraga means they've given up all raga. You know what is raga? Raga means attraction. So all attraction. What are you attracted to? What are you attracted to? Sense objects. Don't try to act confused. We are all attracted to sense objects, isn't it? We have raga for the sense objects. Raga for taste, raga for form, raga for sound, isn't it? So vitaraga means someone who's given up raga for these sense objects. And they're yatis, they're sannyasins. So vishanti, they enter into that akshana. Why do they enter? Yat ichanto, because they desire to enter into that. And because of that desire, brahmacharyam charanti, they practice brahmacharya. Brahmacharya means celibacy. Generally, that's how it's translated. But it's not only just celibacy of body, but celibacy of mind. It says you should not, especially when it comes to the object of sexual attraction, then 8 types of brahmacharya. I can't remember all of them. You know the 8 types? You should not see. You should not think of. You should not smaranam, kirtanam, talk about. Kali means there should not be. Kali means like dallying around. Hey, how you doing? All that flirting and stuff. That Kali, that should not be there. What else? You remember? There should not be the endeavor for sex life. The I should have pulled up the verse. I can't think of the verse now. Smarnam Kirtanam Kali. Should not be the decision, I'm going to do this. And then there should have to be the actual sex act. The 8 types are mentioned. I don't remember all the 8 types. They just mentioned 6. So there's a brahmacharya. There's a real brahmacharya. Not that you brahmacharya, but you're thinking very nicely, regularly. Talking about the Kali. This Kali one is hard to avoid, especially in the West where we are accustomed to Valley. We are accustomed to that. So anyway, we're not sannyasins, but if you're a sannyasin, especially you follow this thing. Tate padam sangrahane pravakshe. So Krishna says, I will speak to you briefly about that padam. The padam means the attainment, which is called the akshara, which the sannyasis get by practicing brahmacharya. I'm going to now talk about that. That is what he's saying there. You want to have a question?
I just have a question. So these people, they like, if you complete brahmacharya, do they live in a particular facility? Because I mean, I kind of understand that it's possible, but still, when you see or like being surrounded by that, still the thoughts can arise.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yes. Smarnam, this means do not think in terms of Rajaguna. So Rajaguna means desire, passion. It means basically Rajaguna means desire for sex life. So you should not think in that way. If you cannot think, that is best. But that is impossible. We live in a world full of men and women, so if you see, you'll think. But it means do not think in terms of the Rajaguna. So in terms of exploitation, how to enjoy the object, you should not think in that way. If you're thinking that way, then you go down. Krishna gives a sequence in 262, 63, how you go down if you think in Rajaguna. You remember the sequence? Yeah, that's a very nice. You can look up 262, 63, how to mess up your life in 7 steps. First step is to think in terms of Rajaguna. That is the first step. Dhyayato Vishayam. Dhyayato Vishayam means you think of the sense object. But how are you thinking about it? Rajaguna, how I will enjoy this object. So from there, the process begins. The process of pranashati. Pranashati means perishing. So Krishna continues here. This is Yoga Mishra Bhakti. He's discussing Sarvadwarani Samyanya Manohridi Nurudyasha. So the yogi, he closes all the doors of the senses. Sarvadwarani. So dwara means door. So closing all the doors of the senses, like controlling the mind practice. So the eyes, the ears, the nose. So to close the door to the senses means to turn them away from sense objects. And this is called pratyahara. So this is an important yoga practice or technique that they usually live in some facility also. Or in Vedic culture, they would live in the forest. Nowadays, there are so many forests left, but before there were a lot of forests. You go to the forest. One time, one disciple, Prabhupada, was complaining that there were too many Mahajis in the temple. So Prabhupada said, why don't you go to the forest? There are letters there like this. If you think you will not see, then you should go to the forest. Then you will not be disturbed. Of course, you will be disturbed by other creatures, like grizzly bears and stuff, where you cannot take rest properly. So Sarvadwarani Samyamyam, you close all the doors to the senses. Manohridi Nirudyacha. And you focus the mind on, it says here, focus the mind on the heart. I don't know exactly what that means, and the commentary doesn't exactly explain. It means the mind is now, because it's shut off to the external world, the mind focuses now only inside. And inside, you've been culturing the mind in such a way that it contemplates only the object of meditation, which is Krishna in this case. So Murtni Adhyatmana Pranam Asito Yogadharanam. They fix the life air on the one chakra is here called the Agya chakra. So they fix their prana there. Asito Yogadhara, and this is where they're situated in yoga meditation, like this is yoga practice. They chant Om iti ek aksharam Brahma. Ek aksharam, the one syllable mantra, which is Omkar. They're chanting that. Vyahara Mamanusmaram, vibrating this Omkar mantra, they meditate on me. So the yogis, that's how they meditate on Krishna, by vibrating Om. I know a lot of people think Om is like impersonal vibration. Isn't it? So this impersonalism. Or Krishna says in Gita, Pranava Sarvavedeshu, that he is the sacred sound vibration Om. And here also he says they meditate on me by chanting Omkar. Om, the one syllable imperishable mantra. So it is not impersonal mantra, actually it is Krishna. Ya prayati tyajan hamsa yati paramam gatam. In this way, when they give up their body, they attain the supreme destination. So Krishna is mentioned here. Same thing he's mentioned earlier. This is Yoga Mishra Bhakti. They're focusing on Krishna through chanting the Omkar mantra, closing their senses out to the external world, and they're doing bhakti also. They're devotees, and in this way they achieve the supreme destination. You understand? So having talked about Yoga Mishra Bhakti, last two verses here. So now Krishna wants to glorify pure bhakti. There's another way also of attaining Krishna. So he's talked about Kara Mishra Bhakti, he's talked about Gyan Mishra Bhakti, he talks about Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Now he wants to talk about Kevala Bhakti. Kevala means aloneness, actually. The word Kevala means alone. That means only bhakti, Kevala Bhakti. Just bhakti, no Mishra program. We like the Mishra program, but Krishna likes this program. Kevala Bhakti. So that is described in verse 14 and 15. What is Kevala Bhakti? Very simple. Ananya Chaita Satatam Yo Mam Smarati Nityashaha. So those persons who think of me, Mam Smarati, Nityashaha means daily. Should think of Krishna daily, at least daily. And Satatam means always. So daily and always. I don't know why he had to say both, but just to clarify, I guess. Daily you should think of Krishna. Satatam means always or at all times. When doing other processes, there are stipulations of like purity. There are stipulations of times in which things should be practiced and so on. Especially in systems like yoga, jnana, there are stipulations for all these things. But in bhakti, there are no stipulation. Whether you're pure or impure, whether you are this time or that time, you can think of Krishna at any time. That doesn't mean a sita time. At all times in all places, there are no stipulations. Like devotees, we like to say, there are no hard and fast rules. We like to say that a lot. There are no hard and fast rules. Sometimes there are some slow and soft ones, though. But there are no hard and fast rules. Anytime you can think, no question of purity, impure, this place, that place. And Ananya Chaitaha. Ananya Chaitaha means your heart, Chaita, knows no other, Ananya. So it means it knows no other person, only one person. What person is that? Krishna. And it knows no other process. Ananya Chaita also means no other process like Jnana, yoga, karma, all of that is also out, only bhakti. And they know no other goal, such as the goal of heaven or the goal of liberation for these other followers. That is the meaning of Ananya Chaitaha. Their heart knows no other person, no other process, no other goal. Only this Krishna person, only this Krishna process, which is pure bhakti, and only this Krishna goal. That's the only thing they know. They are called as Ananya Chaitaha. Nitya Yuktasha Yogina. And Nitya Yuktasa Yogi, these yogis, they desire a relationship with Krishna. There are different types of relationships one can have with Krishna. You can be Krishna's servant, that is very nice. Or you can be Krishna's friend, that is even more nice. And you can be Krishna's parent, that is even more nice. Or you can be Krishna's lover also, that is most nice. So there's different types of relationships that different devotees aspire for with Krishna. So Nitya Yuktasa Yogina, Prabhupada's purport also explains this. In the last paragraph, he explains that this is the meaning here. They desire some relationship with Krishna. Yeah, so last line. Tasyaham Sulabha Partha. Oh, Partha, these persons easily attain me. So these other processes, yoga, jnana, karma, there's so many complications there. But these persons, just by only bhakti, their hearts knowing no other person, process or goal, daily thinking of Krishna without consideration of time and place and purity, always desire a relationship with Krishna, these persons, they easily attain me. Because Krishna becomes very attached to these persons. Yes.
So different, I don't have a language like the yoga bhakti, the karma bhakti.
Yeah. The word is mishra. Mishra means mixture.
Okay.
So like yoga, mishra. So that's like bhakti mixed up with yoga.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, and also in the last bhakti you mentioned.
The pure bhakti, kevala, yeah.
So you have a relationship with God. What relationship that looks like? Is it something that you're invited to, or is it like a calling within you that comes when you build a spiritual practice and grow in it, or do you choose and focus on cultivating it?
Yes.
Wait, what is it?
Or we're laughing because it's such a deep question. So we're just like, wow. I'm not qualified to answer this. It's a very deep question. In short, the way it generally works out is that the type of association you get will more or less determine the way you're attracted to that reality. So what is that verse? Mahatmanas dwaram vimukti. Mahasevam dwaram vimuktis. Tamondaram yoshitam sangi sangam. The verse is here. Mahat Seva means by Mahat Seva, Mahat means the great souls or sadhu, saintly persons. By service with such saintly persons, Mahat Seva Dwaram, the door to liberation is open. So the idea is that the type of sangha that we get opens the doorway to spiritual life in general. That's a general understanding. So the type of sadhu sangha you get, that sadhu, they themselves have an attraction to divinity. So if you keep hearing from certain sadhus, like here at Bhakti Center, we try to Krishna. So if you come to Bhakti Center, who are you going to hear about? You're going to hear about Krishna. That's it. So our awareness of that spiritual world is coming through these types of sadhus. So, and our hearts are being attracted to that world because of those vibrations coming from those sadhus. So if the sadhus are into Krishna Chandra, then your heart will go to Krishna Chandra only. And those sadhus are into Ram, your heart will go to Ram. That's generally how it works. So it's something you're kind of invited to by the mercy of devotees. Once that attraction comes in the heart, then you also cultivate that. How does one cultivate that? So then you have to hear stories about Krishna. Now my heart is invited to Krishna. We're all into Krishna. We chant Maha Mantra, right? Someone comes in Bhakti Center and starts going, Om Namo Shivaya. We nah, bro. You're in the wrong spot. Immediately, isn't it? Even we would sit there, we'd be like, everyone would be like looking like quiet. Okay, after this mantra, you could stop, okay? Because we're into Krishna, isn't it? So our hearts are going in that direction only towards Krishna. Now you have to cultivate that. Now the initial attraction is there from hearing from sadhus. So then you have to hear the stories of Krishna. Then you hear about the different relationships that Krishna has with different devotees. Then eventually you say, wow, this relationship is very nice. I like this. Even that thought, this type of relationship is very nice. Maybe the way that Krishna is also attracting you to himself. Then you continue to hear about that type of relationship. And that way it goes on. It actually can get, it's not exactly esoteric, but it moves in that direction. So one has to be careful in the public arena. There's a lot of interesting history around these sorts of topics, but that's the general idea. So we're kind of invited to a relationship with Krishna in general through the association of Krishna Bhaktas. After our hearts are attracted, then it's a question of growing that attraction by continuing hearing about Krishna and hearing about the different relationships he has. And if you keep hearing, then you'll see how your heart is charmed. And then you only want to hear about only that pastime. Just like Dharmadarashtakam is there, right? Dharmadarashtakam, we Namani Shradam Sachit Ananda Rupam, and during Kartik month in October. Okay, you will see soon. So, and this is famous prayer we sing for a whole month. And then the devotee is meditating on Damodar, which is the young boy, Krishna, whose belly is being bound by a rope. And the whole song is just dedicated to the vision of that Krishna. Bhukti, no enjoyment. Who here can say that confidently? Go before the deity, say, I have no desire for enjoyment. So then we say, I have no desire for... I always joke the mind like, yo, bro, hold that tongue, bro. Don't be crazy. You know, you a neophyte, we neophyte. We ain't that advanced. So it's very hard to say that. I have no desire for bhukti. I have no desire for mukti. My only desire is that this vision of you being bound by the rope remains in my mind. So that means that becomes his whole meditation life. So we become so attracted to Krishna, particular relationship, particular pastimes, that every day that becomes your whole life. You just wake up, meditate on that pastime. When you sing songs situated around that pastime. When you have to talk to people, you talk to people about that pastime and new realizations that you're getting from that. That becomes his mind. That's what Krishna is saying. And yet his mind knows no other. And at all times, all places, he's thinking only of this thing. Then for that person, very easy to attain me. So we're invited and then we're asked to cultivate it, grow it. We're given the seed of attraction, and now it's now what you will do with it. So that is answered for sure. So last statement here of this passage. Brahma Vana Loka. Oops, sorry, wrong verse. 8:15. So what they obtain, Krishna says I am easy to obtain. So what is it they get? So this is the last verse of the passage. Mamupati punar janma dukala yama shashvatam na apnuvanti mahatmanaha samsiddham paramam gata. So Mamu Petya, having obtained me, Punar Janma, they do not take birth again in this world. What does this world describe as? Dukhalayam Shashvatam. It is a house of misery. Yes. And a Shashvatam, it is temporary. Even if someone says, I don't think so, then anyway, it doesn't matter. It will come to an end shortly. A Shashvatam. So na'apnuvanti mahatmanaha. So these great souls, they do not again attain these worlds, never again, because sangsiddham paramam gataha. They achieve sangsiddham, the complete perfection, which is supreme. So sangsiddham here, the word siddhi, perfection. So what is that complete perfection? Instead of taking birth again in material body, and suffering like anything, isn't it? Suffering with material body. You're suffering with material body. You're suffering. I'm suffering daily. Every morning I wake up, I'm just like another day of suffering. So you don't take birth again with material bodies to suffer, but you take birth again in Krishna's pastimes with spiritual body to give pleasure to Krishna. This is the meaning of samsiddham, according to our acharyas, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti. Paramam. Sangsiddham Paramam Gata. They achieve the supreme perfection, the complete perfection. So not only some liberation, but the complete freedom or the perfection of serving Krishna in his pastimes. So you need spiritual body for all these things, and so one gets all of these things. So no more material birth, but spiritual birth and Krishna's leelas of joy. So you could try to think of Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, or you can do pure Bhakti also. So both options are being described here. But we'll come to discover later on that Krishna will promote only this pure Bhakti. That is the secret knowledge of Gita. Okay, so that is it for now. We had given this questionnaire last time. I don't know, did you keep it? It's upstairs somewhere in the unknown. You know where it's at? You have? I have only 2. So you can look over. You actually should have answered most of the questions, just questions in part 2. Part 2 is 5 through 15, but just this last question is what we discussed today. So the last question is, what is the difference between with Yoga Mishra Bhakti and Kevala Bhakti? So you can discuss that for a few minutes. Then we'll take any final reflections, thoughts. Yeah, that last question. You can review the other ones also if you like. If you like, you can sit here with them, man. Please, yes. Yeah. Mm.
The explanation, because I missed the last 2 classes.
Yeah.
And I think the explanation of Yoga Mishra Bhakti was in a previous class.
Today also.
Oh, right. Maybe
Today.
I'm just confused.
Yeah, today also we discussed. Yoga Mishra Bhakti means you're doing bhakti, you mix with yoga practices. Withdrawing the senses, yes, all of this. Also mentioned today, the sannyasins practice brahmacharya, withdraw the senses, they focus the mind only inside. All this is Yoga Mishra. Bhakti practices mixed with yoga.
So Kevala Bhakti don't practice
Is that the message you squeezed out of it? Yes, the pure bhaktas, they're not overly concerned with those sorts of practices. Of course, that requires a little context because the culture itself that persons would have been growing up in this time when Krishna is speaking. Brahmacharya is also something that's part of the culture. Aside from marriage life, everyone was practicing celibacy, brahmacharya. That was only if you got married, then you were having sex, and that too, ideally only for procreation of children. So, but in bhakti culture, they're not overly concerned with all these sorts of stipulations. But that doesn't mean they're attracted to sinful activity. They just do Christian consciousness.
And also how you were talking about like the 8, like I forgot what it's called, the 8 different like
Types of brahmacharya.
Yeah, like so it's is it different in Kali Yuga? Like is it like is it like pertinent to all the yugas, or is it like taken less seriously?
See, the whole reason the thing is coming up is to protect us from suffering. So the conditioned souls in Kali Yuga, we are very stupid. Today I was hearing class from Gorgovinda Maharaj that Jadadiya. Jadadiya means like mind or intelligence, which Jada means like inert matter. So Gorgovinda Maharaj, I was hearing this lecture. So he said, because you are like animal, Jadadiya. He kept saying throughout the whole class. Hey, boy, that's you, a boy. There was a devotee in the class of a boy. He said, hey, boy, Jododiyo. His mind is like animal. So unless the animal, he has to be beat because he's animal, he cannot understand. So just like animals, when you're hurting the animals, they cannot understand. They're Jododiyo, so you have to get. So he was like, unless you get Maya's lashes. He kept saying in the class, unless you get Maya's lashes, then you will not turn towards Krishna. So you require if you're Jodhadhya, you require Maya's lashes, and then you'll turn towards Krishna if you get association with sadhu. It was so it's true. So he kept the whole class was literally the whole class was just that on repeat, and calling out different disciples in the class, and so very funny. So my point is that all these stipulations are coming to protect us from suffering. But because we are Jadadiya, our minds are like inert matter, so we cannot see how a particular activity leads to our suffering. Just like when we want to enjoy sex life or whatever, any sort of object, we see the enjoyment part, but we don't see the part that's going to hurt at the end of that path of enjoyment. So these stipulations are for all yugas. It's just that in Kali Yuga, they're not taken so seriously because we are Jadadiya. So then we don't do. And we also suffer the consequences. Now the whole world is suffering. Particularly the women, they are suffering so much now. Because especially the men are not taught brahmacharya. So now the women get to suffer tremendously. So much child trafficking is happening, woman trafficking is going on. This is all because of lack of training men how to do brahmacharya. Then there's Me Too movement. There's all these accusations of rape culture, which is, for me, it's hard for me to take it totally seriously when you say rape culture, because that means like, no, everyone's just like, yeah, rape. It's like just part of it. But it is actually an issue. So much child molestation is going on all over parents and in-laws, and all sorts of dark stuff is happening. So why does this happen? Because they have not taught brahmacharya. So that's why Prabhupada said, what is the use of your education? Also, we had sex education in school, right? Useless class. You had sex education in school? We had sex education. And all they tell you is the different types of diseases that can come up if you don't use protection. The whole message was like, use protection. That is not a good message. The message is don't do. That is a proper message. But we have not learned, so now we're suffering. The whole world is suffering now. And it's not even at its peak, and it's already very bad. It will be apocalyptic. It's already at apocalyptic levels, but it will get worse. So the point is that all these rules apply at all yugas. But in Kali Yuga, they're not taken seriously. So now we get to suffer. Now, I know your question has the element like, well, if we get caught up in, sense gratification, will the suffering be a little bit less? No. The suffering be same, but if you are a devotee of Krishna will not hold that against you if you are his devotee. He knows we are Kali Yuga gremlins and that it's hard for us to get a hold of our senses and so on. But if you become his devotee, apicha sudaracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadureva samantavya samya vyavesito hisaha. He says, such a person, devotee, even if he's engaged in sinful activity, he should be considered sadhu. Definitely. Sadhureva. Because he's situated in the right determination. Determination to be my devotee. So that's what Krishna takes very seriously. So if you're his devotee, it's not like it's okay. You still have to suffer. Do brahmacharya, we get involved in so many things, and we will suffer. But if you're a Krishna's devotee, he will not hold that against you. He will only see that you're his devotee. So that is Krishna's kindness upon us. But you will definitely have to suffer Maya's lashes if we don't follow. So that is the point. All right. Any other comments, questions? Take one reflection, anything you want to say?
Question, which I've been wanting to ask for a while. But today, because I think you referenced in the past as well, the house of misery.
Yes.
Like, why does it exist? Why are we living in a house of misery? Why did Krishna create?
Yeah. Why do we exist? Why is there existence? Why can't we not exist? These sorts of questions about existence are, I always say they're impossible to answer. Because as Krishna says in the Gita, the soul and the material nature and God, they're all eternally existing. Eternally existing means having no beginning. So there's nothing that caused their existence in the cause and effect relationship. All right. So when you ask a question like why, then that means you're searching for the cause, right? But if something doesn't have a cause, then you cannot ever discover it because there is nothing to discover. There's no cause. So if the soul and God and the material nature is eternal, as Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad-Gita, he actually uses the word anadi, which means literally no beginning. Then it has no cause. There's no way to explain why there is existence. You can only say that there is existence because of self-evident, and that it is a certain way. Because the next question is like, well, why can't existence be another way? Now, there's a follow-up question. I have a follow-up question. Okay, I accept there's existence, but why can't it be another way? It's like you want to know, why does fire burn and not cool? Why does water cool and not burn? Why is it that way and not another way? So how you answer the question? No one can answer it. No science can answer also. So nature existence is there, and it is a certain way also. So now Shastra is just trying to tell us what is the nature of things, so that you can understand how to relate to it in a proper way. That is. So this sort of question you're not find answer to. No philosopher, no scientist, no one can answer this question. Why do we exist instead of not exist? So it's impossible to answer because I've been trying to find the cause. So since the world is eternally existing, the soul is eternally existing, Krishna is eternally existing, there are no cause to them in the cause and effect sense. So therefore it just is. And it is a certain way. Now the information of Shastra will tell us what is and how to relate to it in a way that we don't suffer, at least in this material world.
It's so
Oh.
simple, actually. Like
Yeah.
everything's just like eternally existing.
Yes. So fire has its nature. So mom will tell you this is nature of fire. But when did it get like that? It's always been like that, sweetie. But when? Or you may say, but why? Because that's the way it is, honey. And then now that is fire, because mom will tell, and then she will say, this is the nature of fire. This is the nature of flesh. Flesh and fire, not good combination. You understand, sweetie? Yes, mommy. And then you act accordingly. Then you are safe.